We are live now on YouTube. A very good morning to all of you. On behalf of R.S. Munle Dharampet Arts and Commerce College, Santaji Mahavidyalay and Manohar Rao Kamri Mahavidyalay, I welcome you all to this BCom Semester 2 Compulsory English course. And we have started with the writing skill part. And today we have with us Dr. Supant Bhattacharya, who is our resource person for today's session. And it is a pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Supant Bhattacharya. I know that he needs no introduction, but students, yes, it is a pleasure for me to introduce him whenever I get an opportunity. And you should also know something about him because he's a well-known name in the field of literature. So you should know who Dr. Supant Bhattacharya is. Dr. Supant Bhattacharya is an MA, MPhil, MBA, MFA, and PhD. He's an associate professor and director, MA English, coordinator of the research center at Hislop College, Nagpur. He's also a PhD supervisor. Friends, he was 24th merit in the SSC examination. He's gold medalist at the MA and university topper at the MPhil. He is a theatre person and he has acted in over 150 plays in English, Hindi, Bangla, and Marathi. He's a quizzer. He has participated in Bonvita quiz, school quiz and BBC Mastermind Open Quiz. He's a quiz master. He's conducted 5 national and inter-university quizzes, numerous inter-college, inter-school, inter-institutional quizzes. He's a poet. He edits poetry journal, Rhythmics, and has won All India Poetry Prize conducted by British Council and Poetry Society of India. He has published many poems in many anthologies. As far as the academics are concerned, he has been a resource person and chairperson at many national and international conferences. He's published many papers in academic journals. He has done a UGC project on Rabindranath Tagore. He's translated 2 volumes of translations of Mahesh Elkunchwar's plays published by the Oxford University Press. So, friends, we are fortunate to have such an erudite, a multifaceted personality with us here today, and he's going to deal with narrating and experience. That is that portion we have for our writing skill part. And over to Dr. Supant Bhattacharya.
Thank you so much, Manjushri. Friends, please discount most of what Manjushri has said. She's a very old friend and she actually exaggerates my accomplishments too much. I told her not to, read out my CV in such great detail, but you can't argue with a friend like Manjushri. I am a man who's had multiple experiences, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Basically, how to kind of categorize, how to verbalize your experiences. Okay, all of us, we have had innumerable experiences. Okay, but how to organize them, organize those experiences, how to streamline those experiences and write about them. Okay, basically, that's what I'm going to discuss with you today. Now, what exactly is an experience? Okay, you know that we human beings, we are all conscious organisms. Okay, and experience is the process through which we perceive the world around us. To put it very simply, as conscious organisms, the process through which we human beings perceive the world around us. Okay. Now, these experiences, we can be actively aware while having the experience, or it's not necessary. All right. Often we have experiences without being very consciously aware of it. Okay. It is only later when we recollect. All right. When we remember, then those experiences come to the conscious level. Actually, experience is the primary subject of various subfields of philosophy, including, philosophy of perception, philosophy of mind, There's a subject called phenomenology. All right, let's not go into those details. Now, several different senses of the word experience should be distinguished from each other, from one another. In the the way we are trying to understand experience, some synonyms could be perception, then sensation, okay, observation, okay. Uh, Knowledge that we gain from experience is called empirical knowledge, right? Or there's a Latin phrase, a posteriori knowledge. And this can include various dimensions of knowledge like propositional knowledge, that is, even when you discover that certain things are true based on sensory experience. Then there is procedural knowledge. Okay, you learn how to perform a particular task based on sensory experience. Knowledge by acquaintance, when we are familiar with certain people, certain places, certain objects, because we are directly exposed to them. That is knowledge by acquaintance. Okay. Now, there is another use of this word experience in everyday language, and that is the word experience may sometimes refer to your level of competence, your level of expertise. Okay, for instance, when you are writing your resume, and there's a column experience, okay, where you have to write about your the number of years you have spent in a certain position. Okay, so in this sense of the word, experience generally refers to your know-how, all right, your technical or professional competence. But anyway, in today's talk, we are not going to talk about experience, this aspect of experience. We are going to talk about the immediate perception of events and how to write about them. And uh, mental experience involves the aspect of your intellect, okay, and consciousness. And this is a combination of various factors. What all goes into experience? There is thought, all right, there is perception, then there is memory, emotion, human will, and imagination. Okay, and many unconscious cognitive processes. Okay, so an experience is a combination of these different factors and aspects. Now, how to suppose you have sat down at your computer or with a pen and paper in hand, and you would like to write about an experience you've had in the past, okay, which is now stored in your the supercomputer of your brain as a memory. So how do you find whether this memory is significant or not? Now, writing about a personal experience or relationship, it can be a very powerful way of discovering the meaning of your own past and sharing that past with others. Okay. When you write about something in your past, an experience in your past, uh, there are two perspectives at work. Okay, your perspective in the present and the perspective you had at the time the event occurred. Okay, I hope this is clear. All right, one perspective is your perspective of the event when it was occurring in the past, and the second perspective is the present perspective when a lot of time has passed, a lot of water has flowed down the bridge. Now you are more experienced, more mature, all right, more composed, hopefully, wiser. Okay, and now you can revisit that past experience from a new perspective. The space between these two perspectives, all right, the present contemporary, the then perspective, and the now perspective, the space between these two perspectives is where you will find meaning, you will find significance in that event or relationship. Okay, so your perspective in the present and your perspective you had at the time the event occurred. uh, how do you choose which kind of memory to write about? If the event if the experience or the relationship is recent, you'll be closer to the you as a subject that experienced the event, isn't it? Something that happened 2 days ago. All right, that self and yourself today, which wants to write about that experience, they are closer together as compared to an experience which you had as a child. Okay, if the event is more distant, you will often discover that you are reflecting on that experience, your reactions, and the meaning of the experience very differently. Because the time lag. Suppose something happened to you in class 6. I'll give you some examples later. All right, an event which probably happened to you in class 8 and 6 or 8. Okay, and then you frequently keep thinking about it, and the present memory that you have of that experience may not be may not have much of a correlation with the experience as it had actually occurred. Your memory has sugar coated that experience. Your memory has refined that experience. Your memory has kind of put layers and layers over that experience, and now that memory of yours, okay, is very different from the event which as it had actually occurred. So today, when you want to write about that experience, you will need to decide if you want to talk about that experience as you see it now or as you saw it then. Okay, well, you are, of course, you are the author, you are the writer. Okay, and you are allowed to do both these things. All right, or a more impactful way would be to use your perspective now as the conclusion. Let me give you an example. All right, when I was in class 8, in the 8th grade, okay, my best friend wrote me a postcard. Back then, in my time, we did not have cell phones. We did not even have landlines. Okay, very few houses had telephones, right? And mine didn't. So, how would friends communicate? We would write letters to each other. All right. There used to be things called postcards, and there were blue-colored inland letters, and of course, if you needed to write longer letters, there were always envelopes. But everybody used the postcard. All right, it was almost omnipresent. It cost around 10 or 15 paise back then, and people had stacks and stacks of postcards at home. So my best friend wrote me a letter. I don't know, we had some kind of a disagreement, some kind of a quarrel just before our summer vacation started. And he said he never wanted to be my friend again. All right. I still remember some of the words in that postcard. He said, after school reopens, please don't talk to me. All right. I don't want to be your friend again. And I remember those 2 months. All right. April and May. We had vacation. School would reopen in June. And I was devastated. I was absolutely shattered and terribly depressed. And I kept wondering, I was terrified. How would I start a new class? All right. And this was, the start of class 9. We would be in high school. So, how would I start high school without this friend? Okay. And I still remember that feeling very, very intensely, those 2 months of suffering. Now, almost 40 years have passed. Okay. And I realized today, with the benefit of hindsight, that that experience was probably what made me finally reach out to develop new friends. Okay, and till that point of time, this friend of mine and I, we would be inseparable. And of course, I mean, as it is in school, you did know the others, but they were not exactly quote unquote friends. Okay. Now that this friend had stopped, had broken this relationship off, now I reached out to others and I discovered that, well, it's fun. Okay. These new friends, they helped me develop my lifelong passion in reading. Or that I had a friend who was into Enid Blyton, and he told me, why don't you read Enid Blyton? So I borrowed books by Enid Blyton from the library. This other friend who severed his relationship, he was not so much into reading. All right, we would go roam around the school talking about our families, talking about Calcutta trips and all such stuff. But this new friend that I made, He got me into reading. Okay, somebody else suggested, why don't you try out for the theater? Another friend I had made. So I auditioned for the school play, for the school concert, and that began my lifelong love affair with theater. Okay, somebody else suggested, why don't you write for the magazine? I began to write, very frequently. So that is one big advantage. All right, there is something very life-changing which occurred because this friend decided to break his relationship with me. Another important takeaway from this experience is that towards others. All right, and I now hesitate before I say a final no to any relationship. I understand. I have started learning. That experience taught me to see the world from the perspective of others. Okay, so now I'm comfortable writing about it. I in fact wrote a short article about it, which got published. Okay, and what actually, 40 years later, 40 years down the line, what have I learned from that experience? Okay, and of course, I tried not to blame anybody. I was equally to blame, for the quarrel we had. But I never imagined. I thought after the vacations we'd kind of make up again, like friends do. But that was, I don't know how hurt he must have been, this friend of mine. And that relationship never, we could never mend that relationship again. We weren't on talking terms till I left school. But 40 years later, now I became comfortable in retrospect. All right, trying to write about it and thinking of the benefits. All right, the silver lining in the cloud, if you may call it, the benefits of that horrible experience, which seemed very horrible. All right, back then. So that is how you can visit the experience from two perspectives. What you felt back then, what I felt as a 12 or 14-year-old kid, I don't remember. How old are you when you are in class 8? Okay. So the experience you had, the emotions you went through then, and how do you look at the experience from the standpoint of today? All right, after so many decades have passed, now you are wiser, now you are calmer, now you are more mature. All right, now you know what human beings are. All right, so how do you revisit that relationship? This is one way of writing about experiences. Now, some topic ideas. Any event from your past can be a good topic. All right, if it was important to you. I'm sure your lives, all right, are full of very, very interesting experiences. Those of you who maintain a daily diary, all right, you are at an advantage. I have been writing a diary for the last 25, 30 years. And nowadays, of course, I write a digital diary. Okay, but I still have stacks and stacks of annual diaries. And I flip through them occasionally. And some of those experiences, today they appear so trivial. All right, but some of those experiences I realized that the seeds of the present day persona which I have, all right, the seeds were sown in those experiences. So what you can do is you can use either a one-off event, all right, a singular experience you've had, a reoccurring event. All right, for instance, something which kept occurring every year in your school year, maybe a cricket match, or maybe the school concert, maybe your experience with a new teacher, all right, which could be a recurring event. Or you could write about a person in your past, again, a school teacher, maybe the school chowkidar, the school guard. Okay, I once wrote an article in a local daily about Gangabai. Gangabai was, the beer seller. She used to sell ubla hua beer, boiled beer just outside the school, and very fat lady. And even today, when I close my eyes, I can vividly remember Gangabai. Okay, and how she would often let us have her products without any money. And of course, we would remember to pay her back the next day. But then I got the news that she had died. I got the news only a couple of years ago that she died at the ripe old age of 85 or 86. Okay, and then one day while visiting school, I saw a man sitting there, and I went and talked to him, and I discovered that he was Gangabai's son. And so I had a nice chat with him. So this is a person from your past you can write about, or a place, right? Any place which attracted you in your youth, in your growing up years. All right, you can write about that. So you can write about an event, a singular one-off event, or you can write about a recurring event. All right, you can write about a person. You can write about a group if you want. All right, a friends group which you had in school. All right, you can write about that, or a place. You can write about your school. You can write about your the favorite corner of your school. You can write about how Nagpur used to be back then. All right, in my youth, in my childhood, Nagpur used to be a very quiet kind of a place, very unlike the city that you see today. All right, today it's almost turning into a metropolis. But in my time, the streets would be deserted after 7 p.m. and tongas would be driven all over the city. And it was such a quiet, such a very totally peaceful small town place. Okay, it has changed hugely in the last few years. So maybe you also have memories of Nagpur as a place, or favorite lanes and favorite shops. So you can write about a place. Okay, now, first thing that you should do, sit down quietly, try to visualize, try to recreate that event, that person, that object. You could write about, an object you are very fond of, all right, or the place, and sit down quietly and try to see as many details of that experience as possible. And this is called individual brainstorming. Okay, in meetings in corporate houses, they have team brainstorming where everybody comes up with an idea, those ideas are recorded and then streamlined. This is individual brainstorming. Okay, now you can sit down and think of different topics. What can you think of? A relationship with an important person. What was your relationship with your grandparent? Right? Maybe grandfather, grandmother. Okay, what was your relationship with your best friend or a teacher? Okay, think about that. A single encounter with someone that changed you. Okay, I can remember at least one mentor, Father Ivan Lobo, and he taught us English in class 9 when I was in standard 9, and he made me the student in charge of the library, and he would make me cut out articles from various magazines and put them on the display board and prepare a kind of a newspaper, and that made me feel very important. I was doing some worthwhile work, and I could see that he was a voracious reader. He would read a lot, and I could see the enjoyment on his face. That made me very curious. All right, so I became a reader thanks to these influences. The friend who told me about Enid Blyton, Father Ivan, who introduced me to various classics of literature. So you could write about a single encounter with someone who changed your life. Okay, you could write about an event which was small but very significant. Think about it. All right, which now you feel is very significant, but at that time probably it felt a little insignificant, not so a little trivial, not so important. Okay, or a major life-changing event. For example, I could write about the fact that I was very fat. Okay, an absolutely roly-poly, chubby cheeks and obese kind of a boy in my school days. And then in class 8, I had hepatitis, jaundice, and I was bedridden for around 15 days. And when I got out of bed, I had lost almost 15 to 20 kgs. And I was pencil thin. Okay, so that is one good that came out of that horrible experience of being bedridden. Okay, so maybe a major life-changing event, all right, which you are now able to write about. Okay, or something that you did repeatedly that was meaningful to you. At home, my father had asked me to water the plants in the garden. Okay, and I would love that task. I would carry buckets of water from the tank inside and carry it to the garden and water all the plants, and see if they have any if there's any infection, if there are any insects, okay, any infestation. So tending the garden, it actually was became a very meaningful activity for me. So maybe you also have something in your life which you did repeatedly, all right, and which was meaningful to you. Or you could write about your experience, your memories of a place that defines who you are or has meaning for you. Okay, every summer I would go with my family to Calcutta to visit my grandparents. And that house, even today when I visit that house, now my grandparents are no longer alive. All right, my maternal uncle, my mama has also passed away. But my mommy is there, my cousins are there. So when I visit that house, it literally seems to talk back to me. All right, I can still see myself as a young school kid going about the house, the huge garden. Okay, there are two ponds there. And it brings back such wonderful, vivid memories of the past. So maybe you could also think about that. Or there's some event, some place in the past which kind of defines who you are or has a great deal of meaning for you. Now, how do you make sure that you have a good topic? Okay, so you need to determine what the meaning of that experience was for you. And so ask yourself a few questions, 4 or 5 questions. First question that you need to ask yourself is, what was the meaning of the experience when it happened to me then? What did the experience mean to me at that point of time? When I was 8 years old, when I was 10 years old, okay, maybe when I was 15 years old in class 8. What did the experience mean to me then? How have my thoughts about that experience changed now? Ask yourself the second question. Okay, the second question is, how have my thoughts about the experience changed now? What did I learn from the experience? Did the experience teach me anything? Has the direction of my life, question number 4, has the direction of my life been affected by this event? If yes, how? Okay, and last question, very interesting. If I could go back into the past, ride a time machine or something. I hope somebody invents a time machine soon. If we could go back into the past, would I do things differently if I am to have the same experience? Let us say I go back to the year when I had this fight with my best friend. Would I now stay quiet? Would I do things differently? Are there any regrets? Okay, so these are 4 or 5 questions you can ask yourself before you start writing. Now, next I would like to tell you how to chronologically organize your experience. Okay, one is, of course, to do it from point A to point Z. All right, do it in a very linear way. This is the most obvious way to tell the story. Okay, you just tell it in the way it happened, in the order it happened. Okay, that is how most writers use the story. Tell it in the order that it happened. Tell the story suspensefully. All right, the less important events lead to the more important ones, and finally you come to a kind of a climax or a crescendo. All right, and that is where the story kind of explodes. Okay, and that's the aha moment, the wow moment. Okay, so the story gradually builds up to a grand finale. Okay, and then after the climax, you explain the meaning. All right, or let events show the meaning. Now, if you are looking for an easy way to organize your narration of an experience, okay, one technique is called expectations unfulfilled technique. Okay, now when the event is occurring, maybe you have some expectation, some kind of an expectation. when the event is occurring, and then that expectation is defeated. That expectation is contrasted with what actually happened. All right. So that contrast could be either horrific, all right, it could be very, very funny, or it could be an anticlimax. It could be disappointing. Okay. If you want, you can make it an expectation fulfilled. For instance, there's this story by Mulkraj Anand called The Golden Watch, which follows this technique. Right at the start, you are told that the clerk, Shijut Sudarshan Sharma, he would be sacked. Okay, and that is exactly what happens at the end of the play, at the end of the story. This is expectations fulfilled. But I don't really recommend this idea. Those of you who read stories will know there is the O. Henry twist in the tail technique. All right, the story leads you in a certain direction, and you believe that, well, this is how the story is going to conclude. But then there is a sudden U-turn, a twist in the tail. All right, the tail, the scorpion's sting lies in its tail. Tail. Okay, and so I suggest that that is what you do while writing about your experience. Okay, and certain characteristics of this strategy, this technique is first the introduction. All right, let us say you're writing about how your father, you and your father went to buy a second-hand car, okay, or maybe a new car. Okay, that is the you are describing the expectation that, well, it's a very exciting event in a family going to buy the first car. Then secondly, what you can do is try to foreshadow the problem. Okay, try to give a few hints to the reader that the expectations won't be fulfilled. The car dealer or the car owner tells your father that please be careful because this car is very temperamental and it can kill you. All right, it can cause accidents. Okay, so you are telling the reader that the expectations won't be fulfilled, and then tell the story of what really happened. Okay, maybe your father starts driving and then he is very stimulated and he feels that he's a Formula One racer, and he speeds up, and inevitably there's a crash. Okay, and he wrecks the car and is completely total. Okay, and then describe the contrast between the expectation and the reality. Add details. Maybe you could add the details like how the car radio was still playing your favorite song on the FM channel as you and your father were pulled out, and there was not a single scratch on you, but the car was completely ruined. Okay, and you became famous in school as the kid who survived a 100-mile crash. Okay, then in the next part you could tell about reaction, how the car, your father took the car to the garage and to the workshop, and it was reassembled, it was put back together, but it was not really the same again. Just like your father's ideas of speed, freedom, and fast cars, they were wrecked after the accident, so the car also could not be put together. Okay, the conclusion you are reflecting on, you are kind of giving you are summarizing the experience. And finally, I suggest that all your writings about your experience, you conclude them with an ironical twist. Okay, this kind of a story which has a lot of humor, a lot of suspense in it. All right, they are best ended, they are best concluded with irony. Okay, so this story you could write that after your father crashed the car, he was and repaired it and was totally dissatisfied with his performance. He finally sold it to a doctor. All right, a doctor friend of his who drove strictly within the speed limit. It is I don't know how much of a rumor it is, but second-hand cars usually, if they are owned by a doctor, are in great demand because doctors always drive at a 40 kilometer per hour speed limit, and they are very, very careful drivers, right? Because doctors understand the value of human life. So in disgust, the father puts the car together. He pays almost as much as he paid for buying the car, and then in disgust, because the car wouldn't go as fast as he wanted to, he sells it to a doctor, and that is the last that you see. So this could be a wonderful story. Okay, and then another way of writing experience is something that you have seen in a number of movies. You begin in a story. It's called a frame organization strategy. Those of you who have seen the movie Aladdin, okay, Will Smith, where Will Smith plays the genie. Okay, you'll remember that in Aladdin, the movie opens with a scene involving the genie, who's now a human. He's a sailor in a sailboat, and he's telling his son about his earlier experience. And after that, the story flashes back to the adventures of Aladdin, who comes across this magic lamp, okay, and rubs the magic lamp, and out comes the genie, Will Smith himself. So you could and they are going to Canterbury Cathedral, and on the way they tell each other stories. All right. So again, in Arabian Nights, there's the princess who would be executed the next morning. So the princess, to keep her husband awake and interested, starts telling a story, starts telling a tale, a fairy tale, and the story does not end. So the husband does not kill her, the king does not kill her, and keeps her alive for another night. Okay, and this continues. 1001 night it continues, and Shahrazade, under Shahrazade, the princess, her life is saved. So this again is a frame story. So that is another strategy you could try. Okay, and that one story starts, and the story, your experience is contained within that. Okay, so that is what you can do. Then, if you remember this film Benjamin Button, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, okay, which is based on a story by what's his name, the one who wrote Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald. All right, Scott. Okay, and in that story, in Benjamin Button, what happens is a woman is spending time with her mother. Her mother is very, very old and in deathbed, and her mother tells her the story of her strange romance with a man who was, as he was growing older, he was becoming younger. He was born a very old man, and with age, I don't know if you've seen that movie, Brad Pitt. All right, it had Brad Pitt in it, and was it Kate Blanchett? I don't remember who plays the love interest. All right, so a man was growing younger as he advanced in age. So that strange romance is something the mother narrates to her daughter. Okay, so the advantage is now it becomes easier for you as a narrator to talk about the meaning of your story. Okay, and especially if you're using present day to flash back to the past. So make sure that the frame is not just a random frame. There should be an event, an object, a conversation, or a situation which causes you to flash back in memory. Then another technique that you can use to narrate an experience is depict internal and external conflicts. You know, a conflict is a kind of a clash. Now, what you can do as a writer is you can organize the story around what is happening internally in your mind versus what is happening in the event. Okay, what is happening in your thoughts, a conflict between what is happening in your thoughts and what is actually happening in the situation. For example, if you have seen this movie Monsoon Wedding, or think of a wedding which seems to be a very vibrant, a very joyous celebration, but then you can show the experience from the bride's point of view. Okay, if the bride is wondering if she has made the right choice, right decision in marrying this man. Okay, and maybe another story, another example could be you're writing an experience of a birthday party, all right, your own birthday party, where everybody is coming, wishing you, okay, giving you presents, and there's the cutting of the cake, everybody singing a song. But you are very depressed deep down your heart because your best friend hasn't come. You had a quarrel with your best friend, or your parents have decided that they are going to have a divorce after your birthday party is over. So behind all the celebration, behind all the glitz, behind all the joy, there's a deep undercurrent of sorrow. So this conflict between external appearance and internal reality is also a strategy that many writers use while narrating an experience. Okay, and what more can I tell you? Uh, don't ignore anything. That's why I suggest to all would-be writers, at creative writing workshops, I tell my students that maintain a daily logbook, a daily journal, and keep your eyes open because stories are happening everywhere around you. Okay, we live in a world of stories, and keep your asking yourself, what if this did not happen? Is there a story here? And you'll discover that you can create a story out of virtually anything. Shakespeare did, the greatest writer in the world. He took the small kernel, he took the germ of an idea, and he expanded on it, he built on it, and he improvised on it, and eventually there was a masterpiece. All right, so look for stories everywhere. Keep a daily logbook. Right now, of course, most of you are confined to your homes, and not much probably is happening in your lives. But even within the dynamics of a family, there are there's a lot of potential for future stories. So maintain a logbook, and this is something strictly personal. All right, nobody else needs to see that logbook. So write in it whatever you want, in whichever language you want. Doesn't always have to be English. Whichever language you are comfortable in your mother tongue, write in Hindi. Thanks to social media nowadays, most of you are very comfortable with, writing in any language that you wish. Write in English if you want a hybrid language to write in. But jot down whatever thoughts, ideas, events, occurrences that are happening. All right, in your own family, in the natural world outside. All right, you see a lizard grabbing a moth. Okay, that could suddenly start the ideas flowing in your head. Point I'm trying to make is even small incidents which appear insignificant, incidents which appear pointless, or that they can lead to great important turning points only if you have the imagination. You have to ask yourself, what if, okay, the lizard, the wall lizard is pouncing onto the moth, and at this point of time, suddenly you discover that it's not a moth at all, it's an alien, a tiny alien who has a ray gun, and the alien fires the ray gun at the lizard, and the lizard is stunned. Okay, the lizard falls on the floor, and then you take up a magnifying glass, you go up to the moth, and then you discover it's actually an alien, and the alien and you start having a telepathic conversation. What do you have here? You have here a science fiction story. So a real life experience has been converted into a science fiction story. The event can be something very small. It does not even have to be dramatic. Okay. What is important is the significance of that event in your life. So events plus people plus memories in an experience. Okay, they give rise to your writing. Okay. Yes, Manjushri, I think I've exceeded my time.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay. Yeah. So ask yourself these questions. Sit down, as I said, sit down and do a bit of brainstorming. Okay. What needs to be in the story? What has to be excluded? What can you leave out? The entire experience cannot be condensed into your narration. So there are certain parts that you have to edit, that you have to leave out. So, do you have a favorite memory with your father? Okay, I remember my father and I would often go out fishing, and some of the fondest memories I have with my father are those. So, do you have something like a memory like that? Do you have a memory with your grandparents? Do you have a memory on the sports? Who would hit us on our palms with the straight edge of a ruler, and it was so painful. And none of us dared complain because, after all, the teacher can't be wrong. And one day, my father saw me. Father saw that I was trying to evade going to school. I didn't want to go to school, and my father was very surprised because I was a good student and I didn't want to miss school. Okay, so he said, "What happened?" And I was hiding my hands behind my back. So he saw these black and blue bruises on my palm, and he absolutely lost his cool. Okay, he went to school. He told the principal that this is what the teacher does. Okay, and that ended the teacher's sadism. She stopped being such a tyrant afterwards. Okay, so maybe that's something you could write about. Some memory from school does not always have to be a happy memory. Okay, and then you also have to discover where the conflict is. Okay, is the conflict within you? Is the conflict external? Also, if you're writing a story, if you're writing the experience in the form of an essay or a story, don't add unnecessary, irrelevant details. Okay, the memory has to be streamlined. Write down. First, my suggestion is, in the first draft, write the experience exactly as it happened. Then shove it in your drawer for about a week or 10 days. Forget totally about that, about what you are doing. Then take it out. And another suggestion, friends, please try not to write on your computers. Even I do it at times, when I have to write research papers and stuff, I do it directly on the computer. But surveys have revealed that when you're writing longhand, pen on paper, then your creative juices are really flowing. Then your brain is really getting into overdrive and you are writing much better if you're writing longhand. So I suggest that you write longhand on paper, and after 8 or 10 days, take out that sheet of paper, go through it. And now whatever appears extraneous, whatever appears unnecessary, irrelevant, all right, edit it with a red pen. And now rewrite it. All right, a good essay, piece of creative writing is ready only after 3 or 4 drafts. Manjushri ma'am will agree. Manjushri ma'am is a very good poet. Okay, and she'll agree that a poem becomes ready only after you have gone through it 4 or 5 times. Okay, never rush your first draft, never show your first draft to others, never rush it off for publication. Okay, always rewrite, always rewrite. Be your own sternest critic. Okay, make the details specific and interesting. I'll give you an example. Instead of saying she was a beautiful but boring blonde bombshell, okay, that does not really give you any details. You're saying she's boring, but how? Okay, you're saying she's blonde. Instead, it can also be written like this: she was a sleek, 5'10", long-haired blonde who never tired of talking about her exotic vacations or newest boyfriend. Now you are providing all the details: her exact height, okay, the fact that she's long-haired, and why is she boring? Because she always talks about her vacations, her new latest acquisitions, or her latest boyfriends. That is what makes her boring. So make the details specific, make the details interesting. Then try not to bore the reader. We writers are very fond of our own writing. Okay, but remember, there are two things which attract a reader. One is the plot. Okay, the what happened with the experience that you have had, and who are the characters in that experience, the character development. But don't spend so much time in details that readers get bored. This is the flaw with most student writing that I find. Every year, so many students bring their poems, bring their stories, their novellas, their novels. Yeah, quite a few of them write novels too. All right, for me to edit. And what I find is they get too caught up in the details. Of course, these details are precious to them because these are the details that they carry in their memory. But for a reader, they may not be so interesting. So if you are a good reader, All right, if you read a lot of fiction and non-fiction, you'll know how to read your own writing as an outsider. And also, I have another suggestion. After you have finished writing your essay, form a group of your own. And every evening, maybe from 6 to 7, you have a creative writing session. And please learn to welcome criticism constructively. Don't think that, well, that friend is criticizing because he is envious of me, he's jealous of me, he doesn't like my writing. Okay, welcome criticism. Of course, you are the final decision maker. All right, you can incorporate suggestions into your writing, you can choose to ignore them. Okay, but learn to take criticism in a healthy way. Okay, and last thing is, do not, while narrating an experience, do not let it be a solid chunk of prose. All right, alternate 2 or 3 lines of action, 2 or 3 lines of dialogue. All right, again a bit of action, again a bit of dialogue, and you'll find that the narration of your experience at once becomes very interesting and very fast paced. Okay, so these are some practical tips which I tried to share with you about how to recollect your experiences and how to transfer them, how to express them on paper and make them interesting for your reader. Thank you so much. I hope some of these tips would prove to be of help to you, and I would love to read whatever you have written. I'll give you my email ID. It's very easy to remember. baldbong@gmail.com. BALDBONG. All right. Yeah, it's easy to remember. All right. If you remember what I look like, you remember my email ID. baldbong@gmail.com. So please write about some interesting experience you have had in the past. 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. All right, it can be a short story, it can be an essay. All right, it can be a personal memoir, whatever you decide. It can be a poem too. Okay, and you are welcome to mail it to me at this ID, and I would love to give my suggestions for whatever they are worth to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Supant. And before I move on to the remarks, I just want to say, it's not gender bias, but whenever I talk to children,
Yeah.
the students, most of the boys, they don't go into the details. They'll if I ask them yesterday what happened in the serial, for example, just
That's true.
to make them narrate things. So
Yeah.
they'll tell me in 2 minutes, And when I ask girls, they'll tell me each and every detail of what happened, what the
Men have a macro imagination. All right, men
yeah,
they usually right brain thinkers, and women are the other way around. Women remember details. All right, women
yeah.
often won't get the big picture, but they'll remember the details in very vividly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but it's at home also. When I ask my husband or when I ask my son also, they don't want to like spend much time on telling me so many. They'll just wind up in 2 minutes, But if I
Men are
ask my Sasuma, she will be able to
yeah.
tell me in detail what happened. So I don't know.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
No, but the way you spoke, you gave each and every detail. And
Right.
yeah, we all loved your way of narration. You just started from what an experience is and went into the details and then talked about individual experiences and, and you
These are
talked about,
practical suggestions.
yeah.
Practical suggestions, which I hope, unless you actually write, is pointless. So I
And now,
suggest that all the students who are listening to this, please write at least one experience down, right? And show
yeah,
it to Manjushri ma'am, show it to me, and we'd love to see. I mean, how good you are, and how all of you are good. But
yeah.
of course, with once you learn the craft of writing, then you will be able to become better at it.
Yeah, many of the students feel that they don't have any. Everybody has
Everybody
experiences,
has
but
it.
they
Yes,
feel, what should I write on? We don't have any experiences.
right.
And yeah, but now you've told them how to think about an experience. There are so many experiences, there are so many things happening around everyone, and you just need to be observant, and they can
And keep
how to
yourself
narrate
asking
your
this
own.
question. Keep
Yeah.
asking this. What if? What
What if?
if
Huh?
this did not end like this, but it could have, what are the other possibilities? All right, what are
Yes.
the other options I have? And
Yeah.
immediately you'll find, a whole universe of ideas opens up.
Yeah. And one more thing which I wanted to discuss is when we talked about emotions recollected in tranquility and all. Like if you, when we say that yes, you talk about your experience, and then after many years, like then you talk about write about that experience or think about that experience. Do you think that for every experience it is the same thing? Or for example, if you are enjoying a beautiful scenery, if you like after a few days you forget, you
True,
if you
true.
write it then and there, and
Yeah,
the experience you are feeling, the if you go to a hill station or maybe enjoying a scenery, you want to just jot it then and there, otherwise you forget that whole experience. If you come home and write, my god, oh, that enthusiasm and that whatever you must have seen,
exactly.
after a few days I think you forget. So there are different
Quite
different
right, quite right.
yeah.
Yes. I forget. I mean, I have a very poor memory. So I
uh,
maintain a daily diary. And as I
yes,
told
yes,
you, that has
yes,
really helped. All
yes,
right, it's a
yes,
very detailed diary which I keep. Small things like what I had for breakfast and
uh,
what did my wife cook for dinner. All these things. I mean, it sounds very silly,
no,
but
no,
many years down the line, when you go back to your diary, say 20 years ago, suddenly you realize how your food habits have changed and how so
yes,
many things are now different. So it's very interesting. So I suggest
yes,
that all you would be writers, you maintain a kind of a journal, a kind of a logbook, and that's only for your eyes only. Nobody else has to see this.
yes. So thank you. It was really very interesting, and we all loved it. And dear
Thank you so
students,
much. I
yes,
had
if
fun.
yes,
Yeah.
and dear students, you would. It's all available on the YouTube, so you can go back to this, and whenever you want to just listen to this lecture, you can just click on the YouTube channel and listen to it, and then. But I think they are all geared up, and they would start writing today only. There are
Please
so
do.
many things.
Please
Yeah,
do.
they
Yes.
would start
And I
writing
promise
today.
I'll always write back to you. I'll
Yeah.
write back to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, friends. Thank you,
Yes.
Manjushri.
Okay.
Bye. Bye. Take care.
Stop.